Hey everybody, welcome back. You may have seen in my most recent Facebook post that we had a bunch of timber delivered. What we've got here is a big stack of some very beautiful European beech, and we've got another big stack in there. We've got some 400 or even wider than 400 by 50 and a bunch that's sitting between 4 and 300 by 26. Same here, this is all between 400 and less by 26, and all of this is going to get turned into a big 3.5 meter wide computer desk. So it's going to be wide enough for 2 people to sit at and work at, and above it is going to be a big Japandi style shelving unit. So you can see here, this is where each of the computer monitors will go. Got some extra shelving down each side, cabinets down the bottom, and the difficulty that we have, much like the last job, is access into the property. We have to get it in a lift into the top apartment in a Wellington apartment complex, and you may imagine that 3.5 meters is quite big to get into a lift, so the whole thing's going to have to be split down the middle, taken into multiple parts and assembled on site. So to get around that, we're going to have the big desktop split in a sort of staggered configuration. Through each of these sections where they slot together is going to be some tongue and groove, going to have some dominoes connecting, and then some reinforced seat channel to keep everything flat. And then we're probably also in here up against the wall, we're going to have probably a central support that comes out from the wall. So first things first, we need to start cutting and milling up some of this timber so it's ready to turn into some panels. And then I think the first thing I'm going to get onto is making these 2 cabinets down the bottom.
Because I get all of my timber rough sawn from my timber supplier, it means it essentially still has all of the saw marks on it from when it was chopped out of the big logs of the tree. So for me to process it, it's technically a 4-stage process. I need to flatten one side and get one square edge, and then put it through the thicknesser to get a parallel flat face from the first one that I've done, and then the final step is to take it to the table saw to get my last square edge. The problem that I have is my joint is only a 205mm wide capacity, and most of these boards are, like I said, near on 400 or even more. So I have to rip them down the middle first with the track saw to be able to fit them through my jointer, and then once I've got that flat face, a square one edge, and then take everything to the thicknesser to clean up the final face and get everything to the right thickness. And then once that's been done, I take it to the table saw and square off the final edge, and then that allows me to work with the timber and get it to a stage where I can start gluing it up.
So that's all the boards milled up for the 2 cabinets either side underneath the desk. And as I was milling it up, I noticed that some of them have got some really beautiful spalting on them. So I had a chat with the customer, and while I was around doing some final measurements, we were talking about the spalting and whether they wanted to see it or whether they wanted me to hide it. And after seeing how much we had, we came up with having the 2 front doors are going to have a nice spalted stripe through the middle, and then where are we? Here on the desk, so the 2 doors will have sort of a nice stripe of spalting, and then the inside face of each of these cabinets will also be spalted, and then whatever's left will just get distributed around, and the rest of it will mostly be clear. Well, we'll see how it comes out after we mill it, but I quite like those 2 doors. Are going to be a nice little feature. So I'll just get some dominoes cut in now and get those glued up along with all of the other panels.